Good evening, fellow ghouls and specters alike. Your ghost host with the most, Blue Dragon 5 here.
And Rohith Dar.
Here to engage in some haunted holiday hijinks by trudging through the catacombs and dusting off the cobwebs to recount our spooky selection of Halloween classics. So light the jack-o'-lantern, suit up, and grab the candy dish as we revive and recount tonight's spooky selection, Marvel Zombies! That's right. We're talking Marvel Zombies. We kind of, it's kind of serendipitous with kind of our warm up for full on Halloween stuff, and we need an excuse to talk about it. So it's two birds, one stone situation. So, Roy, how do you feel about the Marvel Zombies miniseries that we finally got? Of course, this was a spin off from the What If episode, Marvel Zombies.
I think overall, everything up until the ending, I was really, into. I think the horror is very much embraced. Um, I think voice acting, depending upon which character you're talking about, can be good to hit or miss. Um, I think in terms of the overall visual aesthetic, I think while it's still the quote unquote what if house style, I think there is some level of some shots, some way lighting works to one degree or another. It looks different and unique enough to where one can appreciate the overall animation experience. I think the ending I'm kind of on the fence about. On one hand, I see it kind of work in a horror kind of way, but I think in terms of the overall cohesion of the story and whether or not what we experienced was real to one degree or another, um, it's a mixed bag for me on that front.
Hmm. Yeah, I was looking forward to this. I was really curious about how much of a continuation of the original What If episode it was going to be. There's a lot of talk about like it was going to be very much kind of broken from that. I mean, I really suspected like given the art style, it really felt like why would they if they have the first episode ended on such a cliffhanger, it'd be really ridiculous not to pick up where that left off. Just all considering. So I was so I don't know if that was like people trying to throw you off the scent or not, but it was ultimately it was very much like a direct sequel to that, or at least kind of like maybe not like direct where it left off. We do see that in episode 3, so I mean, kind of was, kind of wasn't, and I well, let's be honest. Marvel Zombies is the way in which they chose to adapt it. Period. Between that episode and this, it's not what you might call the definitive adaptation of the Marvel Zombies concept, but I mean, you gotta remember, like Marvel characters, like basically interpreted as zombies. In general, with the Elseworlds and kind of what ifs of it all, it's always like a very, it's a hokey premise, but it's a hokey premise that Kirkman made a mint on. In terms of like, let's do kind of zombies in comics and see where it goes. But seeing the zombie concept applied to the MCU, which we all know and love, in certain eras maybe more than others. But it was a very interesting concept in kind of blending classic Marvel lore with kind of the modern day equivalent to like the new basically Marvel lore for the next generation, which the MCU kind of was and kind of essentially is.
Mhm.
Um, so the however we continue the issue of I'm always going to have this with What If, and I think by season 3 they kind of realized that and they kind of threw it out the window that What If being they were really stringent and really limiting with like how the what ifs worked. The whole like one change happens is based on the rules of the how we've done kind of like the multiverse in the MCU. It was always very kind of it's always kind of very limiting and really put them in a box with things. But it that said, that's always like going to be a hangup that I have. But even with that, even just going to the Marvel Zombies episode itself and this, that didn't really bother this concept because it's very simple. Like we use stem from like what if this specific choice, what if the specific moment happened differently, but
Mhm.
everything happened after it was such it was very it was I think world building done correctly, it very much felt like, okay, this is how we get to the post-apocalyptic zombie status quo. So this was, so I think we continued on the track that Marvel Zombies kind of set up, and it's kind of the fun novelty of like seeing, okay, what would the kind of a post-apocalypse via zombies in the MCU look like based on like the whole what if Ant-Man the Wasp ended rather differently? It's essentially with the Marvel Zombies concept that we went with here. There's very much to echo Rohit sentiments before we jump into it. There's an element of how much of the fan service and or if you how much of the fan service worked for the story versus how much it was just kind of thrown in there's this just for the heck of it, and how much of it was like, did you like the ending or not? I think that's kind of ultimately where Marvel Zombies the miniseries boiled down to. Where I mean, like, how much of a tolerance do you have for that sort of thing, and basically, do you like how Zeb Wells ended? Zeb Wells is kind of he's a somewhat controversial comics figure. He's done a lot of good stuff, but he's also done stuff people are not thrilled about.
I kind of, not to say I'm necessarily a big Zeb Wells fan, but I feel like any writer whose reputation is deemed controversial because of what they do in Spider-Man should maybe get a little bit of leeway, because how much of that is really the writer themselves versus editorial? Like JMS had a very heralded run on Spider-Man up until things like Sins Past and One More Day that people argued to be editorially, imposed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you just don't like Zeb Wells,
no, it's a very good example because JMS is lauded, but of course, by the same token, everyone, and basically until No Way Home, everyone despised One More Day.
I mean, it still does. People still do despise the story. It's just the conceit of it was just adapted in a way that had some thematic weight to it.
Well, sure. So the point being, it's like we can't blame JMS for that, because it's like told like, okay, JMS, can you tell a story like this? Well, I can, guys, but I don't think people are gonna like it. Just do it, JMS. All right. So the same could be kind of said with Zeb Wells. Whether he's that was that Paul, was that that was the character, right?
Yes.
Everyone hates that Paul guy. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the point being, it's boiling down. I think this miniseries, under the circumstances, I think it did the best it could in terms of like, we have some really great peaks in this. In terms of like, we have some moments that are really great, but maybe it's a little crammed in 4 episodes, and it's kind of with any it kind of falls into the tropes that any zombie apocalypse story has, which you have basically a satisfying ending or a unsatisfying ending, and that's kind of where we end up here. So I don't know how much of that is like, there's only so many ways you can reinvent the wheel in the zombie story, and in doing it in 4 episodes in the MCU, where the possibilities are vast, quote the Watcher, it's it's a tough position to be in.
Yeah.
Okay, so all that said, let's dive into it. Let's just kind of break it down. We're going a little all over the place, folks. So not specifically episode by episode, but maybe vaguely linearly, I guess. So I guess maybe the place to start is, we got to talk about Kamala Khan. Let's talk about Miss Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So she's our POV character in this, which I think is a great choice because Kamala Khan, just conceptually as a character, in a lot of ways, she's she's the fangirl of the Marvel universe, and we've applied that to the take on her in the MCU. I mean, you got to remember, Kamala Khan, even in the MCU, even kind of like the downward years of the MCU, she was still like, she persists as like, we like this character, even if she's in stuff that we're not thrilled about. We like this character. I think that really did shine through here. So, what, Miss Marvel does have just kind of an infectiousness about her that is not a zombie infection, but it's an infectiousness in a good way.
No, and I think Iman Vellani, I think, does a pretty decent job with the voice acting. Obviously, I think you can tell for a lot of actors that if it's their first voice acting gig, you can tell. I think for people who are maybe a little bit more experienced, I say David Harbour, Haley Steinfeld, some other. I think those are the 2 that have like previous voice acting experience. Everyone else is like, I think, doing their best, but I think that's the kind of the issue for a lot of actors that reprise their roles in What If, is that they don't necessarily focus on how do they actually voice act versus just acting like themselves, but they're just speaking to a microphone. You get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's plus you got to remember now we're at a point where when they started, with What If, we had a lot of as much of the talent as we could get them. Of course, we had sound alikes, and over time we got more and more sound alikes. I want to be clear. I'm not coming down on having the voice actors who are basically in the sound alike position, which because we've had that before. You can have really esteemed voice actors kind of do that sort of thing. I think we kind of have that here, but in some cases it becomes very much like, okay, this sounds like someone trying to sound like these characters, or we're having these. Even if they're succeeding, they're saying things like Zemo was the most apparent to me, where I have a character who's like, he's saying things I don't think Zemo would ever say, and it's coming off really, kind of not disingenuous, but really like this feels so un-Zemo-like, and I don't know how much that's the performance versus how much that's the writing. Maybe a bit of both. I don't know. But no, you're right, though. I mean, having a voice experience does kind of make it seem a little more, kind of convincing, just more like, seamless in what they're aiming for like, basically let's do some MCUs, let's do some live action MCU stuff on the small screen with like the tools that we have, which is animation.
Yeah.
So in using Miss Marvel, I think there was a trade-off here. I don't think it was a bad trade-off, but there was definitely kind of a decision here. I think going into this, a lot of people, well, I can't say a lot because we all, they announce this like D23 or Comic-Con or whatever, when they announced like the Marvel Zombies of it all, we had the lineup, and they kind of alluded to it's not going to directly pick up where we left off. But I mean, with that in mind, I think a lot of us were expecting where episode 3 starts to be Spider-Man, perhaps as at least one of our, if not the, POV character. But then you have to realize Sony, really, like they're tying their webs around our webhead too much there. They're not letting them like. Either it's because of that stupid proviso, which is Spider-Man can only exist in like 30-minute chunks, or not. I don't know if that was maybe the limitation there or not, because we have the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show.
That's why like Marvel's originally was going to be a movie, but then made it a TV show so they could utilize Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I do kind of wonder if he's not like, okay, so Spider-Man shows up in animation and it's not like the titular Spider-Man show. Is he like limited in his screen time? Maybe that's why.
I think even with that Spider-Man show, it's like it has to be under like literally under 30 minutes. He can show
22 minutes. Yeah. So, no, that makes sense. I think for like how Spider-Man is utilized, I don't mind, because ultimately, like I mean,
look, Kamala was a great exchange. If we can't have Spider-Man, I think she was the next best thing. I'm just saying that with that group of that trio, which obviously one of them we can't really use.
Mm-hmm.
So, really the duo that we have, it stands to reason we couldn't get a whole lot of mileage out of them. But Spider-Man, obviously, he is the big connect. He's the unit. He is like, he's the flagship Marvel character. You could always have him as a POV character in a zombie pods, which we kind of did in the first Marvel Zombies episode, which is why he kind of made it to the end there, and that's kind of why we bring him back. So there's an argument to be made that Spider-Man could have worked, but it's probably for the best we had Miss Marvel as kind of like seeing it from a different kind of a different angle. I mean, overall, in which the way in which we kind of got back into the world of Marvel Zombies, and kind of like the day zero of it all, the ground zero kind of moment for each character. I love that. It's very reminiscent of what we did with between Infinity War and Endgame, and I really like that, where it's very much kind of like we see Hawkeye when the blip happened at the top of Endgame. It kind of had that flavor to it with like how episodes 1 and 2 started, and I really like that.
Yeah, and I think what I really appreciate is I think my favorite of the opening is like the Shang-Chi opening.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's great.
Especially the fact that like we see people become really super giant, and it's like the pin particle just kind of leaked out and impacted people. Though just a little bit of quibble was like, the thing is that when Ant-Man becomes giant, he still has his mask on.
I know. But here's the thing: it's because they're zombies, though. If they weren't zombies, I would have a problem with it. Okay, honestly look. Here's where I really quibble with that. Okay. when we're in the quantum realm, we have I think we have Cassie without the mask on when she's when they're when they're giant. Yeah, but again, it's in the quantum realm though, so that's kind of the proviso. Well, it's kind of like space and time and all sorts of weird dimensional stuff going on. So maybe it's okay, but
lots of physics don't apply in the quantum.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The quantum realm is at least a little bit of wiggle room, and here they're undead, so I guess it wouldn't really matter. So it's
yeah.
If they were alive, I would absolutely be with you 100%.
One or two people that were alive.
I don't think so. Are you sure? I thought they were all zombies.
I'm pretty sure because I think there's one person that's like super afraid. Like there's like one guy in a suit that's like super like weird, like freaked out by him being super giant.
If that is the case, you're absolutely right, and I hate it when they do that kind of thing where it's like, okay, guys, look, it's a very specific rule in Ant-Man that you can't just be giant without the mask on. That's why we gave him like the whole cool redesign for that movie. It defeats the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you there. You might be right. I could be Mr. Memory because I remember later on we had the zombies. I thought maybe we did that earlier, but I think I honestly think you're right. And I hate when we do that kind of thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So but yeah, so yeah, just in general, like, mirroring the zombie apocalypse with like a blip level event in the MCU, I thought that was a really good idea. I felt this, kind of our miniseries took there. We kind of settle into the status quo with the whole 5 years later thing, very much like the blip. So the status quo of the zombie apocalypse, where we have kind of our makeshift Young Avengers, which again we keep hinting at. With Miss Marvel, Hawkeye, and Ironheart. Now, mind you, you could split hairs on certain things, but I mean, look, technically, Kate Bishop was on the Hawkeye track with or without Clint Barton going through the Hawkeye TV show. They made the leap is like, okay, we're going to give her the exact costume that she had at the end of that. So that's more like an aesthetic leap, which is like, okay, fine.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the dynamic between Kamala, Riri, and Kate. I think it's kind of sad though that we didn't get to see that dynamic continue on for the rest of the show.
I was very crestfallen by that because the beginning was a very promising, like, okay, we're finally doing the Young Avengers. We kind of teed up like this Marvel was trying at the end of the Marvels. She was trying to get the Young Avengers together, at least in some way, shape, or form. She was reaching out to Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
And it felt like, okay, we're actually going to pay that off. And like, nope, we killed off the whole team except Kamala.
It is crazy that
it's every team killed.
Well, it's crazy that this is the first time we really see the younger characters interact in the MCU, and we now see them interact in live action. And I think that's the thing that's kind of wonky about some of the animated releases for Marvel Studios, like specifically the fact that we have Blade in a Moon Knight outfit.
Yeah.
It's that then also season 3, Riri had a specific role. I would have wondered if maybe if season 3 and Marvel Zombies got delayed to this year, and maybe you had Ironheart in the first part of the year. What if season 3 the second part, and then Marvel Zombies in the third part? You kind of have a pretty good that'd be a very Riri focused year. I don't know if she's gonna be in Adventure Doomsday or will we ever visit the character anytime soon? And that's the thing that I think is kind of the unfortunate part is while I can appreciate the story for what it is from beginning to end, I think the larger tapestry for certain characters to really get the oomph and investment, I think it's kind of let down by the fact that Marvel hasn't really sought to follow up with a lot of these characters in a sequel or two, and now we're just kind of speed rushing through everything to the end of the saga with Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Right. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Ironheart needs all the help she can get right now. In terms of, exposure and just trying to get, people on board with that character, and killing her off this fast is not helping. Just kind of emphasizing the importance of Ironheart because we need an Iron Man of some variety, of some kind.
Yeah, because there hasn't been anything done with Rhodey. Is Armor Wars going to be an actual project
They
And
really shot themselves in the foot with the whole Secret Wars Rhodey thing. They really did, and
Secret
it's
Invasion, you mean?
you're right. I meant Secret Invasion. They really shot themselves in the foot there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to admit though, there is one bit with just real quick aside, just about Rhodey and the whole scroll thing. It does kind of like it kind of retroactively. I would not look. I would not exchange it. Just like Rhodey has like a few. Rhodey has a few bits after Civil Civil War that does feel like a little catty, and it's like
Oh, the Cheese Whiz line.
the cheese. I seriously that line. I love Endgame. I really do. Obviously, the water is wet. Endgame's great. We all know this. But my point is, I adore Endgame. Everyone's asking, what do you like between Infinity War and Endgame? A lot of people go Infinity War, and that's fine. I go Endgame because I really think it's like 3 hours that blows past like that because you're so dialed into it. But the one line that bothers me, because I really think in that movie, Chris Hemsworth, I mean, obviously between Infinity War and Endgame, Infinity War specifically, Chris Hemsworth, he's nailing, he's doing some phenomenal Thor acting.
Mhm.
The whole like I'm the last member of my family. That whole I'm this many years old, 300 like thousands of years old, and I'm the last member of my family. That's a tremendous performance. The only moment in Endgame that really hits as hard as that line to me is the whole please let me do it. Let me do something right. And we undercut it with the whole like I've got thunder coursing through my veins. Don't you mean cheese whiz? It's like come on, Rhodey, come on, this big moment.
Yeah, maybe one of an issue if that line was said to him like early on in the
Yeah,
movie.
early on, fine. Not right there. That's like everyone's getting their big moment. The Hulk has his big full circle payoff in the creation of the Hulk and everything. This is not helping, Roy. You took Thor's big moment away. Between that and the whole, it's like
What's
catty
the other
bits.
catty moment?
I'm saying like Roy's just the point being Roy does feel very teenage girl and it's teenage
Well, I
scroll
mean,
girl.
outside of that one particular line, like, what's the other like?
Well, I mean, technically it's three if you want to split hairs, but I look. You could. I'm saying retroactively, you could quote Rhodey's lines in games, like okay, maybe being a little just kind of like snotty teen girl in places, where he's saying like, yeah, okay, so he's an idiot, a little judgy. It's fine though because it fits the scene. Let's then the whole like he's everyone always reading into the whole man. Don Cheadle doesn't really care for Brie Larson like a lot of people, and like kind of that fed into like him kind of calling her out during the big like we gotta go get Thanos moment at the top of Endgame a little bit there.
I think part of it was just that like I think it's just the Roosters were wanting to do like quippy like Whedon
Yeah.
kind of dialogue because like that's a lot like those kind of lines are
And
lines.
I want to go. These are not problems. I'm not trying to knock Rhodey. I'm just saying that if you given what we are provided in Secret Invasion, if you recontextualize it, well, it kind of feels like maybe something a teen scroll girl might say. I don't know.
Well, I feel like if those lines were done by Natasha, it wouldn't be as catty. Which really enough, I think just the way I don't know if it was how Don Cheadle does that kind of line delivery or he was directed to do that. I feel like if Scarlett Johansson said those lines, it would be more like received in a funny way,
I
right?
don't know. I still think the cheese whiz thing would be really undercutting the moment.
Yeah, I guess like in light of what, especially after like Thor like gets his hammer and feels worthy, it does. I do understand that it can undercut that moment, and especially
Yeah.
I think the stuff with Thor's him being fat and all that. It's a whole can of worms. But let's go back to
Yeah.
Marvel
Oh,
Zombies.
yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. You're right. So, let's see. So the point being, like, we have like our trio there, and I love the idea that Friday. It's a great macabre idea that and this is the kind of stuff I live for. Like, kind of like the whole lot, the kind of our post-apocalyptic kind of Zombieland esque kind of stuff. You're okay. We have, Tony Stark's body has been retrofitted to basically because Friday's still there, and so the AI for Friday is still active, and we just put like a little teddy bear or something as like a head, so we don't get bummed out that Tony Stark's been beheaded and he's a zombie and everything. It's just the idea that it's like Friday's like a member of the team as well, and basically Ironheart being able by proxy to kind of be the Iron Man, and has kind of her suit of armor through another way. And again, this is what I'm talking about. Like with our characters, you could make the logical thing like, okay, the stuff that like we really don't get Riri Williams or Kate Bishop until post Endgame. However, logically they would be in kind of their prototype phase before those events happen. So you could conceivably be this far with them, which is kind of what we allude to in the movies and shows in which they appear. So all that kind of works for me still.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, anyway, so admittedly, as a kind of a plot contrivance here, we have a zombie shield agent. Basically, he crash lands, and they find this beacon to potentially summon the Nova Corps. Which again, a lot of our parallels to it makes sense that we would do this given where we are setting wise. Basically in the mind you, now we're like 5 years past Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm just saying in general, like our cliffhanger was Infinity War. We were in the midst of all that, which is a really cool idea, by the way, with, setting-wise where we were in the original Marvel Zombies thing.
Yeah.
And, per Endgame, it's like this is kind of our, in between those two, this is our beeper to summon Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically the idea is, okay, summon the Nova Corps, maybe from space we'll have a cure for the zombie apocalypse, which would be nice. So it's a travelogue, and traveling through a Marvel apocalypse always has some shades of Old Man Logan. The comic to some extent. It's kind of traversing kind of an eerie status quo for Marvel.
Yeah.
We have like I think the most Old Man Logan idea was just the idea we had this giant crater in which Icarus and Captain Marvel are just kind of perpetually fighting because they're basically unstoppable, kind of like cosmic entities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this basically kills all of Kamala's pals, and Kamala's just kind of bad luck here. She gets every single person killed around her. She's just very unlucky.
Which makes me wonder what happened to her family.
Well, yeah, it clearly did.
Well, I mean, like how her family died.
I mean, probably zombies.
You know what I mean?
Well, you mean eaten, or you mean just like?
Well, it basically like Kamala might just in the same way that Kamala, got Kate and Riri killed to a certain extent, or feels that she did. She might feel the same way about her family.
That's fair. Let me ask you. I have a question for you. Do you think Kamala, because of the Bengal, is immune to to becoming a zombie?
I don't think she's immune. I think she just doesn't get bitten by a zombie because the Bengal just provides a protective layering on her body.
Okay. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting because if you look at that and you look at the 10 rings, they kind of provide a little bit of immunity from the zombies. And I know technically it's just like in the practical use of them, like you just said, like Kamala.
Well, it's not an immunity per se. Like what you see with the 10 rings, it's just it stops the infection.
Well, that's what I mean. The practical use of it is a way of preventing the spread of the infection. And in her case is providing a barrier so she doesn't get bitten. So in the practical use, we know there's not an immunity, but there's a protection. But I'm saying though, I don't know. You might be able to make the argument that there is kind of a general immunity beyond that, but then again, Shang-Chi, doesn't end well for him, so probably not.
Yeah.
I'm saying Kamala, the jury's out on what happens to Kamala at the end, though. That's really why I question the Bengal. Maybe beyond what we see practically, there might be a general immunity, because that's why Scarlet Witch needs her, perhaps. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that a little later. Let's see. So let's have a Blade Knight. So how do you feel about the whole Blade Knight, if at all?
I mean, he's cool, but it's it just feels weird to see when we see Blade in full body and voice. A, it's not Mahershala Ali voicing the character.
Good sound alike, though.
It's a good sound alike.
Very good sound. Very convincing sound alike.
B, the character is just he's wearing a Moon Knight skin, and he's just kind of moving like Wesley Snipes' Blade.
Yeah.
Which is not bad per se, but I would hope that because with all the amount of time and effort spent on this movie, I would hope that they're wanting to make a Blade movie that isn't just retreading what the Wesley Snipes Blade movies did.
It sounds like they're trying not to, but by the same token, I feel like maybe they've realized they painted themselves into a corner with Blade, and they may be they've built. I really think the MCU is in a trap where they built up too much hype around Blade, and they know the importance of Blade. Given Blade was like literally like the first big successful, kind of Marvel comic book movie that happened. That's right, folks. Even before the X-Men, before Spider-Man, there was Blade. Blade was the biggie. So there's a lot of importance there. And I think they're kind of crumbling under the pressure of that, and I think that's why things have been delayed, and there's a lot of script, all the quote unquote script talk, and I think Mahershala Ali's maybe feel like, okay, these guys. I don't know how much of it might be like Mahershala Ali is basically like, okay, look, the first Blade movie was important. I don't want to do something really subpar, and you guys don't even have your script done, or the script's kind of basically. I think he might be calling out like kind of the weak point of kind of the MCU, kind of the making of the MCU films behind the scenes here. And it's like, guys, we're not going to do it this way until you guys get your ducks in a row and actually have like a finished script you actually feel confident about bringing the screen. So something's going to change every 5 minutes or be built around the visual effects that we're going to get at the end. I don't want any part of this. So you figure it out, then give me a call, and maybe that's why it's taken so long. I don't know.
I mean, also, I think part of it's also like how like extensively like involved is Blade going to be in like the supernatural corner of the MCU,
and which we haven't really developed that much yet.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like I think that's also being hashed out. Also, like vampires were just a secret society in its own world in the Blade movies, but in a universe where there's like secret society, secret organizations galore, it's like, how do you try to make that like? That's where like the new rock stars, the screen, like the channels that break down Marvel movies and TV shows. It's like, all right, when did they show up? How do they interact or not interact with these like different organizations that were also like secretly manipulating history?
Look, I don't want to sound reductive here, but it really feels like I think on the whole we might be overthinking Blade a lot these days. Where I know there's only so much we can reinvent the wheel on Blade, but it's basically a matter of like, okay, let's do them right. Yes, there might be some similarities to what we did in the Wesley Snipes Blade. Basically, let's take that. But again, it's like the Spider-Man problem that it's essentially what we did with Spider-Man. It's like, okay, how can we not just like do the same Spider-Man movie where like ultimately what we should do is just like, look, let's do the stuff that we weren't able to do with that character, and basically we'll build from there. And then if things go accordingly, then everything will kind of fall into place from like what people are used to and know with that character, but still with the MCU flavor to it, where we don't have to reinvent it. We got to go to the 1800s. Why do we have to go to the 1800s? Why do we need the sinner's wardrobe? Why?
Well, I think doing a period piece vampire movie has like an interesting appeal to it, especially if you're like trying to, because I think vampires are so, it's always cool to see vampires in the period setting because it's evocative of Anne Rice, Interview the Vampire. And I think just like the fact that vampires are immortal so that you can have them like come in with a sense of history. Also, like, we don't really have that. Like,
do you remember if Blade is in fact like if he's been around that long, or if it was like just like a vampire from whatever recent year he was turned into a vampire onward? Like he's really that old?
I mean, he was born in the early 20th century, I think.
That's the thing. I'm asking it. Was he?
No, let me look. All right.
I'm just saying, look, I understand they don't want to just do 90s, basically kind of that, the late 90s
leather jacket,
They don't. That's what they're worried about because obviously Deadpool made made a very good case for, okay, look, at this rate there's only going to be one Blade because it's going to take him forever.
He was born on October 24th, 1929 in the comics.
Okay, look, see right there. Mm-hmm. Give me that. Give me a Blade in the 1920s as like the starting point. He's like
he's
Blade
born in 20s.
I don't mean like, I'm saying if you want to do like from the beginning where he's born. I'm saying give me like a kind of don't go with the 1800s. Stick with the stick with the early 20th century.
Honestly, it's like you could just do what a Fantastic Four did and like
go through. Yeah,
you do like have like Blade. Maybe it'd be kind of interesting to see Blade do like the black.
If you want to do a period thing, do Blade through the ages, but through the ages that make sense. Okay.
Wait, why wouldn't the 1800s make sense? And
what I'm saying, he said he was born in 1920, right?
No. I guess that's like if there wasn't a specified period of time where it's kind of like amorphous, like what is like would you prefer to be in the 20th century, just closer to where like other MCU characters and like ideas could like intersect and all that, or
Ideally, yes, like a Blade through the ages, at the very least, in a world where we're not just really going back to point. Okay, look, it's just going to be Blade going up against just a. I mean, you can have him go against a traditional vampire, but it's also I don't know. It just feels like it's the whole point of like doing Blade if we can't bring him into the MCU. Obviously he
No,
needs to stand
I
on. He needs to stand on his own merit, like the Fantastic Four did. Yes, that's ideally what we should do. But still, it's like they're banking on him being able to interact with other characters, like we saw when we had the pictureless cameo in the Eternals.
No, honestly, like, yeah, ideally, if you were to do a period piece Blade movie, either like place it in like the 70s when Blade debuted, and then have like maybe him dress up in like his classic 70s look, and then
Yeah,
something that's like in between that look and the Wesley Snipes look, but 70s appropriate.
yeah.
You could have it where maybe Blade's in his own, like if it was the Multiverse Saga, have
Give me something that's a nod to the original Blade.
in a universe that's like maybe retrofuturistic, it's like kind of, or it's like maybe 70s onward, or even set in certain like if we can have Fantastic Four be done in a specific way with sci-fi in the 60s, like have that for Blade and horror in either the 70s or 80s.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, give me, look, honestly, at the end of the day with Blade, I'm not saying like let's go less Wesley Snipes. This is not the best example. It's like off the top of my head because it's still a '90s Blade. But I'm saying like Spider-Man the animated series Blade, but with teeth, so to speak.
I think what you do is that like if Wesley Snipes Blade is like a very action hero martial arts kind of a guy, I think to make Mahershala Ali stand out, it's like if Wesley Snipes Blade is like a judo master, have Mahershala Ali Blade be like a chess master, where instead of using his physical prowess, he's like the strategist, the tactician, the guy who like psychologically manipulates his opponents to like kill off each other and whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So okay, yes. So Blade Knight. So again, it's kind of course seeing Blade Knight. The running gag is like it is still like that, still the Deadpool joke, just like there's only gonna be one Blade at least at this rate.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a cool combination of like yes, it's very transparent. Like okay, they thought they would have Blade by this point, and beyond that, it's like okay, we really think Blade's cool and he would really thrive in a zombie apocalypse, which we see. And let's be honest, Blade Knight he's a really cool part of this to see him slice and dice zombies. Just an excuse to have Blade doing really cool stuff via Moon Knight, and we just basically need him as like kind of our passcode, kind of our pass key to get through, get to New Asgard with the whole Khonshu. But also,
Mm-hmm.
it's again, it's just awesome seeing Blade just kind of like dealing with the Marvel zombies and just like conceivably. I mean, didn't really get it. Again, the whole question of like immunity, like, do we see him get bitten later on, or is it just the idea he gets overwhelmed and possibly killed? Like, what do you like? Is he because of the vampire thing? Is he immune to being a zombie? And the godhood thing, like, what do you?
I think he is. I mean, he's basically undead as a
Yeah.
Well, he's a Don Peter. He's a half human, half vampire sort of deal.
Yeah.
So like, would the zombie just kind of overtake like his human half? Like, or I mean, because the thing is, this is not a traditional like zombie virus. This is like a weird like quantum realm zombie virus sort of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, considering that Icarus, a non-organic being, can be infected by the virus, I think Blade could be infected.
I still think that I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, like,
Captain Marvel too, but then again, Captain Marvel's. I mean, she's human though. So
regular zombie virus. That's the thing. It's a virus from like a physical dimension where the rules of physics don't apply. So I think we kind of have to like put our assumptions about like how traditional zombie like viruses, contagions spread like at the door.
All right. All right, let's see. So we have the Romanov family. So no, not that one. Not the dead Romanov. The other Romanov family that will soon be dead. So we have this was a neat idea. This is what I'm talking about, the world building here. So Melina, she controls the zombies much like she did the pigs, which we saw in the Black Widow movie, and I love seeing the bond between Red Guardian and Yelena here, which we've seen before. They're doing really well.
Yeah, it was good. It's good to see more Melina, and especially in light of that family not being really together. Outside of this one show. When was the last time we saw all three of them? Interact as a family? Because we saw Melina in like What If season 2 as an antagonist, and like Red Guardian What If season 3, but we haven't seen like those three are really the Black Widow family. Be on screen together since the movie.
Yeah. Actually, it might have been season 3 that we had Melina in there, but I'm not sure.
I thought Melina was in season 2.
What's the thing? Isn't she like she's the bad guy in the or
The
Captain
Winter
Car?
Soldier.
Yeah, the winner wasn't the Winter
Yeah, that
Soldier
was
episode in
season 2.
season 3.
That was season 2.
Okay, all right, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because season 3, because then in season 2.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. I forget. I don't know what. You're right. Yep, sorry, my bad. You're right.
You're good.
All right. Okay, so anyway, so we established the Scarlet Witch as the queen of the zombie horde, the queen of Sokovia, if you will. So this is honestly this tracks. The whole multiverse of mass thing. We saw she was still like the most powerful zombie in like the What If episode. So it's interesting that she's basically using her tricks from Age of Ultron, which is also kind of in retrospect. It's like a precursor to the Westview WandaVision of it all, and so kind of apply like her big plan, overarching plan here is to basically pull a global version of Westview.
Yeah,
which I think that tracks for her. I think that works, and even like Infected, it's pretty much like it's ultimately what she wants, and there's like it makes sense given how powerful a character that she is. She would maybe have like not immunity, but like a clarity amidst the zombieism. But yeah, so I love her using the MCU heroes as like her zombie, in zombie form as like obstacles for our ragtag group to go up against. Like we have Hawkeye, we got Ghost, Abomination, and one of my favorite parts of here's one of the big highlights, one of the peaks of the show. Okay, we finally had Red Guardian go up against at least half of Captain America.
Oh yeah, that was really fun.
Which was great, and just thinking, I love that Cap was really giving him the business, and I was like, oh wait, zombies. So he's basically doing he crushed someone so graphically. So we should probably talk about that too. Again, being a zombie show, they were allowed to go, no holds bars here. It's bloody and zombie and icky and great.
Yeah.
But I think I was just relishing in like the victory over Captain America. He just fell on him. Gets so messed up, but it's so funny. But yeah, so the Shang-Chi of it all. So the fun what if aspect of if this were to break out, Shang-Chi, he's in San Francisco, he's in Ground Zero where it happened. So him, Katie, and other characters who'll be in the nearby area, like Jimmy Woo. Which I love that we got Jimmy Woo in this and interacting with Shang-Chi, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yep, and just again, like it's very much that street level, like the blip chaos equivalent. It's going on there, and logically, Wenwu he would have to move up his plans. Like, okay, I gotta get Shang-Chi on my side here. So he would have to make a play to rescue him in the midst of all this chaos. So that would put him in the story, and it was a really great, again, another high in the 4 episodes here where. Wenwu has that great soft-hearted fool, and he saves his son. It's like Wenwu was a good father deep down.
Although I guess
he said deep down. Obviously, did a lot of bad stuff, but
I mean, where's his sister? I guess his sister's just maybe dead, or just try to make things do in Macau.
Well, honestly, she's probably safe from the initial outbreak. But I mean, over time, when it went global, I mean, maybe she's a goner. I don't know.
Yeah. It was funny to have Death Dealer be part of the crew.
That was great. And I love him and his whole like kind of bromance with Jimmy Woo. I thought that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Just the idea of like the chatty, the chatty Randall Park paired with like completely silent Death Dealer.
Yeah.
Adorable. It's an odd couple for sure.
But it just works. I would not be surprised. I hope that if we see Jimmy Woo, like it's in a Shang-Chi sequel, because I think he would have a really good like comedic rapport. Obviously they do animation, but live action they just can do so much more.
I mean, yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So our stories converge when we go to the raft, which basically is now like basically a cruise liner, kind of like a ferry, kind of transporting everyone to New Asgard. I got to admit, so like I said, so Zemo basically took over the raft in the chaos since Civil War, which I mean, okay, that's fine, but
Uh-huh.
it's a very reductive take on Zemo. We have that whole thing, the really forced scene where it's like I don't think costumed heroes and mask and everything. It's like, come on, man, it's
Yeah, it
not
was
at all.
specifically supremacists, like people with
Yeah,
superpowers. Yeah.
it's like really missing the point of what Civil War was all about.
Yeah.
I do, however, I love. Look, I don't know if it fully tracks or not, but in the midst of the apocalypse, kind of like, okay, fine. John Walker as his number two, just given like the Cap history, I obviously that this is John Walker who never really became the interim Captain America, but still, just the idea that he would given Zemo's kind of history with Captain America, period, it just feels fitting that John Walker would be
Yeah.
roped in here. But in all honesty, it's like, okay, we have. I think the way honestly this happened, at least the way like Elizabeth Olsen's kind of mentioned, like, we recorded all this stuff like years ago. I can't remember any of it, which is fair because it sounds like the way they might have did it is like they recorded all the animated stuff across the board that they would need, and I think they just kind of like interspersed it. So that's why we have like Wyatt Russell still around. That's why we have Elizabeth Olsen. We have all this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which makes me wonder if Elizabeth Olsen did all of her own zombie sounds in like the first What If episode.
I don't think so.
It'd be adorable if she did, though. All right. So, look, at the end of the day, the raft, it's a neat idea, but it feels more like a premise for like a zombie movie, like zombies on a cruise. It just feels like the raft is more set piece for the action to take place than it really is the plot. It's like, well, if we need it feels like a great pitch for like, okay, so Namor, if he became a zombie and they were at sea, this would be really bad. We need to get him at sea. How the heck do we get him at sea? The raft. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many times it feels like the MCU is just trying to necessitate, like, Namor worked. Okay, we're gonna make Namor work. He was a cool idea, even though the movie was a little, in the shadow of the first Black Panther.
Yeah. And I do appreciate like how demonic they have Namor be. And considering his power set, it would be a nightmare to have to do,
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, Namor was a really great element of Wakanda Forever, but it was always just, I don't know, it was like little things here and there. Like, for example, I hated how cloudy and dark everything was under the water. Even if it does make sense, it just felt a little like, well, it's kind of boring down here. It's supposed to be El Dorado. It's supposed to be kind of beautiful and everything. I can barely see what's going on down there.
Well, maybe the once Secret Wars reboots, maybe we'll get a more colorful Telecon.
It's not even colorful. I just want it to be a little brighter so I can appreciate it. Is all.
Fair.
I mean, I know it's a very small, insignificant quibble, but it's just like, like we're underwater a lot in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just hear the boredom on Rohith right now. I just want to say that.
No, I think like with I will say what that whole sequence, I really appreciate the guts to kill off Yelena. I don't know if this show was made after like Thunderbolts or that, would they've gone that far to like kill up such a more beloved character. But I think that the fact that they just didn't know how popular Yelena was going to be, it just hits hard, especially if you're like fans of those characters from Thunderbolts. So that's something I really do appreciate for this show. Like
I felt so bad for Alexei.
Mm-hmm.
He's lost everyone. He's lost the love of his life. He's lost his daughter. He probably again his other daughter. He's lost everyone.
Yeah, and the thing is that like for all intents and purposes, if Alexei didn't drown his stars in alcohol and was self-pitying about it, he would be like someone who could be reliable enough to help survive an apocalypse. Like he's a super soldier. And I think it's interesting for the one quote I was like, how do you Um,
How do you honor the dead? By
every breath you take.
every breath you take. So that was I thought that was a nice credo and just kind of thesis on like the grieving process in the midst of like a hopeless situation. I thought that was really nice. And I like that Kamala is kind of like the only connection he has left to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know?
I think all these characters, like when you see them like lose members, like there is a feeling of them just kind of trying to get through it all. I think oftentimes for stories where there's just a lot of deaths, especially in zombie stories, it's like, oh, it's just kind of like a video game thing. It's like, all right, we just gotta survive, and like the elements, like, oh, who's gonna outlast who? And I think here is like you have that element to a certain degree, but I think there is, when the deaths happen, there is a level of tragedy and like shock to it. That's I think is appropriate.
All right, so I want to talk about to me like the big MVP, kind of sequence of the whole. To me, like the biggest, kind of like the biggest peak of all the, between the peaks and valleys of our miniseries here. The opening of episode 3, I felt was like, oh my god, yes, this is everything I wanted. And kind of like where the cliffhanger was going. And I know I was like probably one of the only person I cared about. Like, oh, I want to see where it's going to pick up from that what if episode because it was a really good cliffhanger. I felt. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to see where the heck they were going to go with that, and I was satisfied where they went with it. So, basically, now sadly, the only it still worked. I'm saying only like hanging Chad, obviously. So, sadly, this whole sequence is narrated through Spider-Man, which Spider-Man narrates a lot anyway, so it's fine. But this is in general. But the loss of Chadwick Boseman, obviously, if we have to acknowledge it, I thought this is a pretty cool way to acknowledge it and kind of roll with that.
I mean, it did feel a little weird that like, did they not have any archival footage that they just couldn't relay? Because Black Panther just being silent, that the whole sequence just felt weird.
Yeah, again, Marvel's taking they've taken a very definitive stance on the whole Boseman thing. They don't really like break this. Presumably, I don't know if there's gonna be time travel or not. Though not a time necessarily, not time travel. I mean, a time jump in in the third Black Panther movie or not, because I don't know if it's like there's this lack of confidence in Shuri, Black Panther, or just basically we desperately need like a T'Challa. I'm assuming want the kid to be grown up. I don't know, but it's this thing of they've been very stringent. To some degree, I get it, Rohit, in that the thing that was really special about What If was, it was like the last we had of Boseman across those episodes where T'Challa showed up, and there was resonance there with what we had. And if we kind of used something posthumously, which obviously they did. Look, we're assuming they record a lot of stuff in advance. Now, I imagine they did, but I don't think they knew they were going to do a Marvel zombie show by the time they did like the first season of What If. I highly doubt that they had like this continuation like formulated. Otherwise, they would have actually had them say the lines and everything. This honestly, I think Black Panther might have been in the thing more, but they obviously
I don't think Marvel Zombies was in the like the actual show was in mind because
I think they were hopeful for like a second episode to continue things, but that was like in the planning stages of like
and considering the timeline of when like Elizabeth Olsen was like, oh, like I remember, like I definitely think that they probably like they had the plan and then had their voice actors, and then when Chadwick Boseman died, it's like, well, we'll just I bet they had to excise lines, and then 2021, all the actors, recorded their lines, and then the show was just sat on for, well, I don't know like how long it took for them to animate, but like it was easy 4-year wait.
Yeah. Well, regardless, I mean, under the circumstances, I felt like maybe it was a classic thing where okay, we're not going to really have Boseman speak or have like a sound alike or anything in this case. I'm not saying across the board, across the board again, even with like Eyes of Wakanda, we're kind of jumping through hoops not to do Black Panther, not to have like the T'Challa version of Black Panther have a sound alike form or anything that crosses lines. And I kind of get it. I think maybe it will shrink in other places, but here it felt appropriate that okay, we're going to acknowledge that we want to like give him a really good out for why he's not in the story, and one that really honors the character and the performance, even though we don't really have his voice. And I felt that was I probably could have just used him like shouting "Wakanda Forever" very confidently, but it would have been like the only thing they would have used, and they would have had to break it up, but it just wouldn't have flowed as nicely.
I think it was also interesting that we didn't get to see like T'Challa's face.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would have been nice to like if like Peter like last shot or last scene of Black Panther's like T'Challa showing his face to Peter or whatever, like that would have been nice.
It might have been a yeah, you're right, but also I don't know, it's kind of cool seeing like Black Panther the character is kind of like. But you're right, it would have been a really nice. Honestly, it would have been really great for a bit. He like put the mask down, then put it back up when he did the charge. But I don't know, he probably wouldn't have, just would have kept it off like for the whole run back. I don't know. Anyway, still, again, just the events that unfold are really awesome. I just love the idea that our ragtag trio here, just having you basically kind of like going into like the big Infinity bout, as it were, like our big kind of Thanos encounter that we had in Infinity War, but on kind of the ground level of Wakanda here. It just feels like it's always like a really great part of Infinity War. We had like everyone going up against Thanos, where they were hopelessly outgunned with him with the gauntlet. But it's this great magic trick of we know they're doomed. We've seen the story. Again, these guys weren't we don't know how successful they were because we're assuming they were not successful, but seeing that there was somewhat of a victory here amidst all this, and we are used to these Thanos encounters in the Infinity War setting not going well for our heroes, but darn it, we're rooting for them, especially with the fact that Spider-Man, we love Spider-Man. It's Black Panther, who of course now is ever more resonance applied to this, knowing that it's probably not going to we're going to have to write him out somehow, but it's going to be a very triumphant kind of like it's going to be a very memorable, kind of like heroic moment for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just felt like, again, the odds were so stacked against him, but just the idea that it was like that we poisoned the audience with hope here that, hey, Thanos, he's all zombified right now. He doesn't know how to work the gauntlet. So there actually is a chance. I love that that's what jazzes me out of my mind about this sequence that, oh my God, there was a chance. And we have, the child making that awesome sacrificial move where, okay, I mean, he's going to use the Infinity Stone to get up close to him. He basically, they have the Mind Stone. Thanos takes it. Looks like they're doomed. And basically, this is the equivalent of Black Panther having an Iron Man moment with Wakanda Forever. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and I think the way that Thanos was taken out by Black Panther was really cool. And I think what's crazy was what happens immediately afterwards with regards to the whole Infinity radiation.
Yeah. Basically, the idea the stones get destroyed in like the vibranium kind of core of Wakanda, per the thing. We've established that when the Infinity Stones get destroyed, there's like a giant like cosmic kind of like explosion, which is how we found Thanos at the top of Endgame. So this does kind of track.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so of course our the Minotaur character from the Multiverse of Madness, and basically the surviving Kamar-Taj sorcerers, they kind of save our Spider-Man Ant-Man, who, by the way, I love that in hindsight, just Spider-Man and Ant-Man being able to hang out together in the apocalypse setting here, it just feels like we saved the two most likable bug-themed heroes in the MCU, which is adorable.
Yeah.
All right, so in hindsight, though, I did wonder this, though. In hindsight, you kind of wonder, though, if they really knew what they had in this moment, in this situation, it would have been, hey, I really thought, like, the plan could have been, like, we're going to use the gauntlet. We're going to get the gauntlet away from zombie Thanos. We're going to use it to undo the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, I think that would have
obviously it wouldn't have happened because nothing else would have happened in the episodes leading up to that. But it just felt like that would have been a good plan, actually.
Yeah, I think they just didn't want to retread, Endgame.
Well, yeah,
but no. I think for me, the fact that okay, Thanos is taken out. There's this whole wellspring of infinity radiation, and Hulk who as established in Endgame can absorb some level of radiation. Just goes in and basically becomes like a Dr. Manhattan, or basically, He's
Well,
functioning.
he's also naked like Dr. Manhattan, so it's very appropriate.
Yeah, I really like the design for like Doctor Hulk, like Manhattan Hulk, or like
Well, it's Infinity. Come on, man. It's just Infinity
Infinity
Hulk.
Hulk. Yeah, no, it was really, it's really neat to see him kind of just stand there stoically, and then when all the zombies come at him, it's like, oh, this is just kind of like a fun, the fun video game in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still think one of the coolest things we ever got from like What If was I still love Infinity Ultron. I think it's like the coolest thing ever. And like just when they did, like, oh my god, they're doing an Infinity Hulk. I was jazzed out of my mind. It's a neat idea. Not as cool as Infinity Ultron, but still pretty cool. And it's but again, per the logic that the illogical logic of like, well, Hulk could absorb all that radiation. Essentially, the sorcerer is like realizing, hey, let's use him as kind of our magical deterrent, basically kind of like restoring balance in the universe here, so it's not just like enveloping everything.
Yeah.
It was a good plan. All right. So speaking of which, so the space plans. The idea is we go to New Asgard. We use the collector ship, which again I think they use so often because, I mean, yeah, it kind of made sense, and they would probably keep it, from New Asgard between what happened to Ragnarok, so they would have access to it. But really, it feels like a model dump thing, where it's like, okay, well, we need a ship that we don't have to design all the time, so we're just going to use the collector ship because it's always the most readily available. I'm sorry, not the Grandmaster ship.
I see.
That's what I meant, Goldblum.
No, I agree. I mean, I when we see Thor in this show, it's very interesting to see his look. It kind of looks. I don't know if you take a look at his like actual outfit. It kind of looks similar to what he looks like visually in like Doomsday, based on that like one leak of the tote bag. Like he has like gold rings. I don't know. That's something that's been designed in other prior Thor outfits. It's always typically silver.
Yeah, but I didn't notice. I saw. I thought it was like a blanket or something. But yeah, the little tote bag thingy. I don't. I didn't notice that they made the rings gold. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Uh, I think like with the whole reveal of New Asgard being like filled with all the zombies was really cool. I appreciated like Red Guardian's like, oh, I consumed a lot and I'm still fine for whatever reason.
Uh, Real quick, we had to talk about the horrific death of Rocket Raccoon.
Oh man, where you just got burned to a crisp.
Yeah, so I just love that we took like the big triumph and like, hey, they've arrived and we're saved, and then nope, just Rocket just gets oh my god, it goes the way of Dr. Phosphorus. It's horrible.
Poor Groot as well.
Him and Groot, and just oh my god, it's so again, it's so traumatizing.
What wonder if the rest of the Guardians are safe.
Well, let me actually wait a second. So, with the Guardians, so let's see. In theory, with the Guardians, they would be on Titan. So maybe Thanos killed them on Titan. That's the thing. Like, are they? Well, that's
No,
wait. So
because the events had to turn out differently. Because I
that
remember
is a good question. Yeah, that's the thing. So actually, yeah, they wouldn't be.
for Marvel Zombies, like you ought to mention about how like the Avengers divided because of Civil War, but then came back because of a crisis. The crisis being like a zombie infection sprouts up in San Francisco, and then the Avengers are like fighting the Golden Gate Bridge, and a lot of them get knocked out and become zombified.
Well, I mean, remember though, we see. Here's the thing: when we had that original What If episode, Cap showed up and he was in costume, but he wasn't in like the nomad suit.
No.
Yeah, well, I know that's upset. I always wrote that off as like they're just kind of botching the continuity on that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. So I mean, with I don't know, Thanos in Wakanda obviously is in zombie form, so I'm not saying they're following it like to a T, but it does suggest that we're somewhat in the midst of Infinity War. But it begs the question, though. You're right in that they're showing up to respond to a different disturbance altogether, and that's what gets them together versus the Thanos of it all. By that token, though, why the heck are how's Thor meeting Rocket and meeting Rocket and Groot with them? And we're implying. I think they botched their continuity there. I think they thought like, hey, we're actually just it was Infinity War was going off the way it was. Because like Thor had a bone to pick with Thanos because of all the stuff that would have happened at the start of Infinity War. But if that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
I mean, you might be able to make the argument that like the beginnings of Infinity War probably happened, like before we get to Earth. I mean, I think before like, but essentially, Infinity War might. I don't. It's a question of how much of it starts. How much of it starts before the zombie outbreak. I guess maybe. I don't know. It's making my brain hurt.
Yeah, I don't know if the writers even gave much thought to that. The logistics of it. Maybe I mean let's. I think the hand wave is like, well, all of the like all the different universes don't have events line up 1-to-1.
I mean, I think the question is like, when does when the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp happen? That's where you can really pinpoint when exactly how far in Infinity War we're getting, like what's happening while he's on house arrest specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So the point being, yeah. So we go to New Asgard. Khonshu is kind of our entryway there. We have F. Murray Abraham coming back to just kind of be Khonshu again because Moon Knight season 2 seems to be just kind of a false promise, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Thor, he's depressed because yet again he did not go for the head, and especially with a zombie, it's like really the one again. They really doubled down the whole. If only he went for the head every time, he just can't do it. Maybe it's a depth perception thing. Maybe it's because Thor only has one eye. Maybe that's why he's not going for the head. You ever think about that?
Does he not have his full eye set on when he arrives?
Actually, that's a good. Did he have the eye patch when he showed up?
No, I know he has the eye patch like
Well, no,
in
in Infinity War he doesn't. He has the cybernetic eye, but I mean, like in here, does he have the eye patch?
I don't think he has the eye patch. I think he gets the eye patch though from like getting hit with that, the Power Stone laser or whatever.
Okay.
At least that's how I imagine. I don't know if like something went for his eye or whatever.
Okay, so do you think the cybernetic eye allows him to see, or is it just a glass eye? Is it a fancy glass eye? How do you think it works?
Uh, I mean, I have to imagine it works like a regular eye.
I always like to think it does work like a real eye, but I mean, if it's just a glass eye, then maybe that's just what Thor's dealing with, maybe.
I feel there would be. I mean, I don't know if the writers gave that much thought to like. I think they just do like, hey, cybernetic eye, you pop in and it just works.
Okay, look, I'm splitting hairs on that one. I really think, look, logistically, I think the eye does outlay a C, because why else would you have an eye in there if you like when you're in Guardians with the guy with the fake cybernetic eye? Like, why else would he have that? He would have to be able to see.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. Point being, Thor doesn't go for the head, and he's been kind of sulking at it, and then we have so essentially. New Asgard, they're kind of reveling in everything. Like we're doing fine here, and because in part because of the Queen of Sokovia, and there is no Queen of Sokovia. It's Scarlet Witch playing mind games a la Westview and all that. And then poor Alexei, he's been chowing down, trying to drown his sorrows in food, and apparently he's been eating zombie. I felt so bad for him here. It's like, oh god, and he's going to be infected, and it's not going to end well because there's no way. How does he not get infected after eating like zombie fingers? You've been there.
Yeah, it's really works up an appetite.
Yep. Yeah, but seriously, I've always loved Red Guardian. I love the way David Hart plays him. I just love it. I love the character and the what if stuff. We've really been loving the we play him like kind of comedically, and here we play him very straightforward. I feel he's gone through a lot, and just I felt so bad for Miss Marvel, just like seeing like Alexei turn into a zombie. It was a heartbreaking scene.
Oh yeah, especially because it's. I guess I wonder if the writers thought about like, oh, could one of the characters kill off Alexei if he turns into the zombie? Or I think the fact they just let him, kind of rot in his corpse. It's his own tragedy. So
Yeah, very sad. So aboard the ship, They go up there. They're about to act. They fly through like I forget what was the barrier that was preventing the outside calls before. I'm trying to remember what it was. Like there was like this whole the reason they couldn't just like launch the beacon. They had to get through like some sort of like interference field. You know what the interference field was?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's like,
Was it just the stones? Was that what the interference was? Like the cosmic energy
no,
of the stones?
I think it was just a general like they had to go above like a certain part of the atmosphere, like signals are jammed or anything like that.
I don't know.
Or
I thought there was like they said it was like because of something. Like it was like there was like a I don't know, but anyway, yeah. So they go past there and they're about to activate the beacon to summon the Nova Corps, but they don't have to go far because the Nova Corps is basically quarantined them.
Mhm.
This was how did you feel about this reveal that the Nova Corps is just quarantining the Earth?
I mean, it's a pretty.
Did you see it coming?
I didn't see that coming. I figure like maybe like the virus just spread throughout the universe, but the fact that it hasn't, like, I guess it's good for the rest of the universe.
No, I honestly I just thought the Nova Corps wouldn't be able to help her. They would basically get overwhelmed somehow when they tried helping. That's what I really thought it was going. But then like, oh my god, just quarantining them. It's like God, it's so callous.
Yeah, but I guess when you think about it, it's like
Just
the
trying to kill him on site was really mean. Like no dialogue, nothing. It's just like, yeah, kill him. 10 seconds to comply. Full ed 209.
yeah, it's I would be very interested, if there was any continuation or like story set in that universe. It'd be interesting to see like how does the like alien worlds or the rest of the galaxy react to there be like a massive, zombie virus on this one planet.
Yeah. So, but again, it's kind of a matchstick moment of sorts in which, like, we have, we had our big ace in the hole. We had our big like solution, and it's trying to kill us. So so we're really doomed. So basically, the plan is we got to protect the Infinity Hulk from Wanda, stealing its power, and basically making the Westview thing completely global. Perhaps I think is the idea. So I think this is where things start to get a little muddy here. So the issue to me when I look at like the last section, I feel part four was the weakest of the episodes,
Mhm.
maybe because the issue I have is it feels like why not use the like it's like why not use the power to actually to actually cure everyone, to cure the planet of the zombie plague. Where it's like if that's what Wanda's doing, I mean, a part of it is like you like for example, you could in theory do a reveal of like Wanda wasn't evil the whole time, which of course plays in the expectation of the Scarlet Witch. We're expecting her to have like a villain turn or a heel turn. In reality, it's like no, she was trying to get this Infinity Hulk power so she could harness that power and cure everyone. This whole time we've been trying to stop her. Maybe you kind of orchestrate to kind of like build to that reveal. So it's like she's not doing, like if you make the actions that she's taking, for example, until you get to the Asgard section, you could say everything she's been doing has been is in pursuit of the Infinity Hulk so she can cure everyone. Maybe we kind of I guess retrofit the new Asgard things a little bit to like maybe Queen of Sokovia is like she's saying there's a little more to the story there, but the way we play it there though that's just her being really cruel and making Alexa eat zombie parts. It's uh,
I think like her being infected by the zombie virus, that's like kind of the hand wave explanation for why she's quote unquote evil and isn't trying to like cure everyone. Um, I think maybe if she'd been corrupted by like the dark hold, maybe the virus could, maybe Wanda tries to like cure the zombie virus and she looks at the dark hole, but she gets corrupted by it. That would have been, I think, would have been, interesting, because then at that point, like, you don't have, it's not like Wanda just has automatically turned evil, and that's the direction. It's like Wanda was trying to do her best and it just didn't work out. But
well
yeah,
even
you go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Well, I was gonna say even if that's the case, even if it's just like Wanda is she's basically via the zombie virus or the dark hold or something or some such thing has happened. Which again, the whole how Infinity War factors into things you have to maybe question. If like the loss, like, does Vision actually die? Is he, does he not? I know we had the Vision. I know we had Vision in the What If episode. So technically, he didn't die, but I forget what exactly put Vision in that position in the original What If episode. He was basically he was a. You remember what happened with Vision? Was he just a head initially, or am I just thinking of Ant-Man again?
No. He was very much like a fully like moving person. He was actually sacrificing like
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
He
I think
sacrificed himself and gave him the Mind Stone. That part I remember, but so he was full bodied though. So he was. Oh yeah, he was seeking food for Wanda, right? Because he still loved her. That's what he was doing.
yes.
Okay, that's what it was. All right. So I don't know. So the sorry, well, I guess what I'm getting at here is that however you want to arrive at like Wanda's been corrupt and basically she's kind of given up on like trying to cure everyone's basically let's just make everyone kind of like let's give in to the end let's give in to the end by kind of a west view kind of a Wanda vision of what the world could be. Essentially we're going to fix the world for everyone's mind, kind of like making them live, basically making them basically what WandaVision was all about, which is in a sense it's kind of like putting a happy face on a tragedy. Like this is very sad on grieving and tragedy, and it's like the like a hopelessness with basically kind of wishful thinking through magic. That's kind of what her mentality is, which does kind of track with the character. I mean, that's fine and dandy, but I still, with that said, this whole thing of I need Kamala for some. Why does she need Kamala? Why does she need to convince Kamala? I mean, is that the thing of like she's just trying to get like her to not fight her on this, or does she actually need her for something? Does she need the bangle? This is the sloppy writing to me. Like there's a lot of hanging chads with like why that is, and it makes me wonder like was there more to what Wanda was doing the whole time? Was there not? That
I have to wonder. I think because initially, I bet what happened was at the beginning of the saga, there was going to be some foreshadowing and connection with the 10 rings for Shang-Chi and the Bangles, and I think it was and Kang. So I bet like with Wanda seek Kamala, the Bangles, and just whatever power she has, would be relevant to her, like to like what she wants to do. I really think like the show was made at a time when Kang was going to be the end game, and the Bengals and 10 Rings were going to be a big components to that.
and we kind of hinted at that in the Marvels, and we didn't really do anything after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, that thing. It sounds like that's what they're probably. That's the only logical thing. Like why she would really need Kamala. I mean, it was either they're trying to put a happy face on like the one last one, get in the way, maybe. But I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. So with the ending. So we can basically talk about the ending. So the ending's very dicey. It's a very dicey ending because on one hand, it's like things got so hopeless where you're seeing like we just like Spider-Man's about to be eaten by a giant wasp, like a giant Hope Van Dyne.
Yeah.
And Zombified, which is horrifying. Like Scott's, he's a goner. Like, it's like we can't bear to see our two chipper, bug themed heroes in the MCU. They bite the dust like that. And it's just it's like things are completely hopeless, and Kamala's just kind of like out of hope. It's just kind of like gives in to like okay, like forgive me, like this might be the only way, basically letting the Infinity Hulk powers go to Wanda, I guess again for reasons. But the idea that she basically gives into it hoping for the best and things seemingly work out, but we then see that okay, things are not what they seem to be, and we throw more confusion there too of like it seems like Riri is alive and telling her she broke through like some Scarlet Witch's illusion, which suggests this happened way earlier on. We convolute like an ambiguous choice, which I kind of like the ambiguity perhaps, and it was like the idea of like we've kind of surrendered to the madness, and it's basically when you do a zombie apocalypse story, you paint yourself into a corner of do we cure the zombie apocalypse, which usually is a no. Usually we don't do, and especially Marvel Zombies, I don't think we ever really do that unless you can remember unless you remember an outcome which they actually did that. I don't think they ever did. It was essentially, I think, like two Marvel zombie stories, and then beyond that, I don't know if they've ever done like a revival of the concept beyond covers around Halloween. But it's basically you either cure them or it's just that there is no curing, there's no ending in sight. And you can look at the Zombieland franchise; they're not curing the zombies; they're basically making the best out of a bad situation, which is kind of what they elected to do here. Only a little bit more of like Kamala made a trade off. She kind of like somehow she seems to be okay. I don't know how she's okay. Maybe that Bengal, I don't know, which really suggests to me that okay, Wanda couldn't turn her into a zombie, so this was like I'm gonna like give her like the view of like what the world could be, or maybe everyone else in zombie form is seeing what she's seeing. Maybe I don't know. It's too there's ambiguity, and there's getting too ambiguous to the point where it's like what does it even mean? And that's our ending after 4 episodes, after all this journey, and it feels a little bit like a cop out, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt was like. Well, are we just kind of living in this like limbo of whether what we saw was real or just in Kamala's imagination? And at that point, like, do we really feel for the characters if there's a possibility that it wasn't real?
Yeah.
And there's no continuation of this. It's like, well,
there's no continuation. This is the ending, man. There's 4 episodes. I highly doubt there's going to be more.
Yeah, at that point, it just feels kind of like, oh, it's
really there's no way to cure this plague, so it's like you should be doing more zombie stuff from different character perspectives, ending in the same ways. There's no cure, so it kind of makes it feel pointless after a while, right?
Yeah, and it also kind of feels a little. You kind of just feel bad for the characters that are struggling to survive. Because at that point, it's just like
we killed Spider-Man. We didn't see it, but we didn't. It's horrible.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, do we just focus on whatever other Marvel characters like? Imagine the zombie virus came to the Fantastic Four universe, or even like the X-Men universe. Yeah, I think with what this show has done with the premise, it's like there's really not much you can do that would invite in like repeat interest. I feel.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't recall offhand like how the original Marvel Zombie comics end, because I presume it's just basically it's just. I mean, it's hard to end the zombie story because again, it's just gonna be well, zombies are still around, and any survivors are probably dead or turned into zombies. That's the only ending you can really have. It ends in defeat, which I think Zeb Wells, to his credit, I think he kind of realized that and was like, okay, look, how can I put like an interesting twist on like a losing story where I've given people the hope that maybe they could stop it. I mean, we have Infinity Stones, we have Infinity, we have basically the magic of the Infinity Stones that maybe could undo this, and then we kind of took the rug out from under on that one. But just I don't know. I just felt like again he just he just did not stick the landing on it. I think it was close. Maybe I don't know. I feel I can respect what he was going for, but it just felt like we didn't go hard enough for it. Where it felt like just the whole like little blip of like, if we leave it fully ambiguous that did Kamal actually reshape the universe, but maybe like I think more subtle clues that maybe it didn't go. I mean, would have been something maybe, I don't know, but do you think that would have made it better, or would it not have? Like, how do you think it should have ended?
Man, I guess it would have. I think if you wanted to end in a way that's really dark, you could have just had like maybe like there's an alien planet, and then the sky turns red, and it's like Scarlet Witch leading like her zombies over like she's one and just spreading her zombie virus throughout the universe. Because at that point, like, if you want to go dark, I feel like you need to go all the way, and maybe have Kamala show up as a zombie, and like you kind of like have like the last shots mirror the beginning shots of the first episode. As kind of a sad bookend. But yeah, I just can't think of it. Like, it just feels like they wrote themselves in a corner and didn't really think of a way to like either go all the way in a dark corner or a dark place, or just have something that could have a glimmer of hope. It just kind of was, it might have been all a dream, which I think just leaves one just kind of unsatisfied.
I mean, honestly, you know what I might have done? Mind you, I'm not saying I could have done it any better. I don't think I could have done better than Zeb Wells. I'm not saying he nailed it, but I'm just saying this is me throwing something out in the moment here. I never really thought it through. It's just I'm going to throw it out there.
Sure.
Um, I do really like the whole like Wanda using kind of like her trick from part of the trick from Age of Ultron, which of course is the precursor to the WandaVision, the whole Westview thing. I love that idea. So that's why I think deep down I really like, kind of like essentially what we tried to do with the ending. So part of me wonders, like, if the zombies are fully successful, if they eat all the human survivors, if we just imply like Kamala's like the last bit of resistance, we just show like the whole world get overtaken by zombies, like where do we go from there? Well, eventually the zombies may or may not being undead. I don't know if they could like die of starvation or not. I don't know. But however, the point being in like a position where the zombies just really had nowhere left to go. Whether we suggest that Wanda's going to take them elsewhere into other dimensions or not, I don't know. But regardless, I think maybe what it should have been is like we should have like seen the POV of the zombies where it's like this is terrible. You, the audience member, think, okay, this is terrible. Kamala, and on the flip side, though, we see what Wanda's been making all the zombies see to follow her and everything, which basically is this utopia. Like everything's fine, everything's dandy, and like Kamala's like, oh hey, she's hanging out with her friends, but really they're zombies like walking together,
Mm-hmm.
But it would have given you kind of like to me that would have been like it's defeatist, but the silver lining is like that's what the zombies are seeing when the eyes glow red. They're seeing everything being fine.
Yeah, no, I think that would have been a very it would have been a good horror type ending.
Yeah. All right, so I guess that's it. I guess that's pretty much just the end of it. We pretty much talked it through. Is there anything else you think we missed, or?
I appreciate for the Shang-Chi focused episode that there was like a little Mad Max section of that, with the Skrull gang and everything.
Yeah, it's again in general we got poor Simu Liu. He's been I've heard he's been like making like comments and stuff. Basically, just like very tasteful. I'm just saying he's been making stuff like like Superman gets sequel. But apparently people measuring the box office like Shang-Chi made a lot of money, a lot more money than Superman did. And yet, always the promise of like Shang-Chi 2, still nothing. Superman's happening like a year or two from now.
I really think, and I think Marvel, I think
because he really loves that character. He really he earned that.
I know. It just I think the honest truth of it is that Marvel, when they released Shang-Chi, they thought it was going to do big in China, but it didn't, because part of it is just that
China hates everything. Okay, they hate everything that didn't come from China. It's just kind of
well. I mean, that's a recent thing, but beforehand, like I don't think they hated. They now hate American culture. I think it's just more like
not like now. I'm saying historically, they've always been kind of dour on like the American movies, from what I understand. Like, was there a time when they were responding to American films really, like the comic book movies really well?
Well, I think part of it is just like think of like why Aquaman did so well. And it's like I think like China just really loved like big visual like effects. That's what the Americans bring to the table.
Did Avatar do well over there?
Oh, I think most like the first or second one.
I get fine the first one. Yes, probably the first one. Less on the second one.
I don't know the exact numbers. I wouldn't be. I think it definitely no. I think it definitely did well in China. I think it's like I think now where we are. It's like I think the Chinese film industry has like caught up to American visual effects, and I think now it's like for Chinese audiences, it's like well we can see stuff that's like closest to our cultural sensibilities with the production value of American films rather than us. Like if we're wanting American production value, you see American films, but with Chinese films like Capra, it's like I think this goes with any culture. It's like I presume for most countries, like their primary like film consumption is like from their own native country or film industry, which I don't think is like anything wrong with it. I think it's just like I feel like Hollywood hasn't necessarily adapted to that reality And I think with streaming as well, I just don't know if many movies are going to be as profitable. Like this decade, I don't think is going to be as like a big decade, as compared to last decade. But with streaming and COVID being as it is, I think the 2030s either will be a further decline from this decade, or maybe it's kind of a rebound. Once Hollywood's kind of figured out what's the new baseline or paradigm to market and make successful movies box office wise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I just, it's again, I get the sense like through this and like through all the the other like what if stuff that we've done with the what if episode we have with Shang-Chi and just in general, it feels like he really loves that. He has a passion for that character. He really he's.
And part of it is that those projects were made before or around when Shang-Chi probably came out. So I kind of want. It just feels kind of bad that like there's not really an thankfully he's gonna come back with Doomsday, but like it's just basically this like four to 5 year gap, and that hasn't showed up in like I would be surprised. I don't like he's not gonna show up in Wonder Man, which has his first director on. The first director is like not do like most likely not gonna do the Shang-Chi 2. He's gonna be in Spider-Man world. I really hope maybe once the reboot happens, maybe Shang-Chi just kind of gets upgraded in terms of aesthetics, in terms of what like people he's interacting with, stuff like that. It just feels such a tough place to be in, especially when you're the most noteworthy like character of your particular racial group.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther was such a big cultural financial hit, and then with whatever issues people have with Black Panther Wakanda Forever, it still made like 800 mil. And that's a franchise people are invested in, and I think for because of what.
To be fair, everyone's seeing because they want to know how they're gonna respond to not having to leave. A lot of it's curiosity. Sequels always have the curiosity factor about it. People
but I think also it helped. But I was also like Ryan Coogler's like now like was then and now is like a household name as a director. He's his own brand. Janet Cretton isn't that, even though he's a great director in his own right. I kind of hoped, with his involvement in Wonder Man and being in Spider-Man, like, hopefully there's a good director that can, elevate like Shang-Chi to new heights. Post Secret Wars, we'll wait to see. Though I think at this point in time, Marvel Zombies, I think we've said what we said on this piece. It's a show I think was, decent, but the ending kind of just leaves a lot to desire.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank the folks for kind of tuning in. Albeit briefly, we had Jacob kind of waiting in the wings. We had Little Blue just kind of commenting zombies, and Sonia Pinto just saying hi.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. That's the end of tonight's spooky selection. Our spirits grow weary, but they'll be stronger than ever next time as we engage even more haunted holiday hijinks. Laugh with me, Rohith.